My experience is when you are open and looking for these clues in the world, they're happening all the time, and they're happening often right when you need them. There's a song, System of a Down song called, I think it's the song Chop Suey, I think. And it has this big, do you know that song?
Mm-hmm.
It has this big bridge section in it where Serge, the lyric writer, lyric writer, didn't have words for this one part of the song. And we were sitting in the library in my old house, and he said, well, I don't have words for this, and we were finishing. It's like, okay, any ideas? He's like, he didn't have any ideas. And I said, okay, pick a book off the wall. I picked a book randomly off the wall. I said, open it to any page. Tell me the first phrase you see. He opened it. First phrase he sees. That's what's in the song, and it's a high point in the song. It's incredible. It's like magic.
What was it?
It's the part farther unto your hands you have it.
Why have you forsaken me? That
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
Try that one. I think it's pretty good.
It's wild.
Edward Lodewijk van Halen was born in Amsterdam, the Netherlands on January 26, 1955. Eddie was the son of Jan and Eugenia van Halen, being Alexander his older brother. Eddie's father was a clarinetist, saxophonist and pianist. His mother was an Indonesian from Ringkasbitung on the island of Java. Music was always been present in Eddie's life. His second name is a tribute to the great German composer Ludwig van Beethoven. The spelling in Eddie's name is the Dutch equivalent of Ludwig. Interestingly, Eddie used the same approach as his father when he named his son after the Austrian composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. At the age of 7, Eddie moved with his family to the USA, settling in Pasadena, California. However, even before this change, both Eddie and his brother Alex started to study the piano. His learning continued after the change. Moving again, now to San Pedro, they took classes with an elderly teacher named Stanley Stacy's Calvados. A curious fact about this is that they hated that and were forced by their mother to continue their classical piano studies to avoid possible punishment. Eddie himself later revealed that he was never able to read music. He learned to play by watching and listening. When I did recitals, I improvised, he said in an interview. By the age of 10, he had already won awards for musical performances, especially the annual piano competition at Long Beach City College, where the judges said he interpreted a classical piece in an interesting way. Even though he was playing it correctly, Eddie was not satisfied with the piano, as it did not appear to be a challenge or something he'd be so interested to do. While Alex, his older brother, started to learn to play guitar, Eddie migrated to the drums, practicing for hours every day. Later on, Eddie made the decision to change his instrument and began to learn to play the guitar, keeping it tied to his body and practicing while strolling or being locked in his room for hours. Eddie was always close to his family, so no wonder in an interview when asked about the best advice he had ever received, Eddie revealed that it was one advice from his father.
What advice did your father give you that you wanted to make sure Wolfie knew?
Things he always used to say to us was you can learn from everybody what to do and what not to do. Mostly watch people for what not to do. And if you make a mistake, try to do it twice and smile. Because that way people will think you meant it. You know? And his Dutch terminology would be gewoon doorfietsen. Just means just keep pedaling, and smile.
Dave Grohl was born on January 14, 1969 in the state of Ohio in the United States. As a teenager, he already played drums in many bands. Being a huge enthusiast for drumming, during the early 80s, Dave joined the band Scream. His first contact with Nirvana was during a European tour with Scream. With a tour cancelled and Scream ending, facing financial problems, he called his friend Buzz Osborne for help. Buzz gave Christ's phone number, who was a member of Nirvana, and Dave traveled to Seattle. Once there, he played with Kurt and Chris. The two members of Nirvana then realized that Dave was the ideal drummer. Dave has been a huge force in the music world since the early 90s. Having played in several successful bands, he is a respected musician among his peers and millions of fans love his versatility and the amount of love he puts into his craft. Dave is also a great and inspiring speaker. This is one of his most memorable speeches, where he recalls all the great people that helped him during the early days of Nirvana.
I was the quiet one in Nirvana. I was the drummer. But most of you don't know that I was the 5th drummer of Nirvana. For whatever reason, I got to be the luckiest person in the world and also be in Nirvana. But I have to give credit to all of the other drummers that came before me. Aaron Burkhart, thank you very much. Dale Crover from the Melvins, who is my absolute drumming hero. Dan Peters from Mudhoney. Chad Channing, who is the drummer of Nirvana. Guess what Chad's responsible for? If you listen to a song like In Bloom, the that's Chad. We came from this underground punk rock scene where there really were no awards or ceremonies or trophies. It was all about doing it for real, and the reward was doing it right and sharing the community of music, helping other musicians and inspiring people. And so I got really lucky to grow up in the Washington, D.C. punk rock scene where I was inspired by all of these amazing people. Too many to list. I'm also lucky that when we first started out, we didn't know anything about business. We were in a fucking van, you know, buying corn dogs from t-shirts that we had sold. And we were lucky that we met a manager named John Silva, and we met an accountant named Lee Johnson. And I'm happy to say that I've never, ever strayed from those two people in my life. That's like 25 years. John Cutcliffe and Michael Meisel, and I mean, it's a long list of people that I'm gonna forget most of them, but most of all, I have to thank my family, because I was lucky enough to grow up in a musical family in an environment that encouraged music. Parents that never told me not to listen to fucking Slayer, you know what I mean? I listened to some really, really fucked up shit. But my parents never told me not to, because I was finding myself. So Mom, thanks. Thanks for letting me drop out of high school. Kids, stay in school, don't do drugs. It's a bad idea. I have to thank my beautiful wife, Jordan, and my 2 daughters that I hope grow up to inspire people just like every musician I grew up inspired by. Because I think that's the deal, is that you look up to your heroes and you shouldn't be intimidated by them. You should be inspired by them. Don't look at the poster on your wall and think, fuck, I could never do that. Look at the poster on the wall and think, fuck, I'm gonna do that. And then you do this.
I think as long as I don't forget where I came from, my feet stay on the ground, and I remember that Limp Bizkit is what got my foot in the door, I'm gonna be fine. And I'm gonna continue to deliver things, real things that touch people. And that's just the way it's gonna be. And we don't work for critics. We don't write music for critics. I don't direct movies for critics. We work and do things we do for ourselves and for our fans, because we still every day remember what it was like to be on the other side of the barricade in the crowd, and what we would have wanted to see, or what we wanted to hear, or how we would have wanted to interact with our band and with that band. And you know, we got to realize that we need to talk to our fans and hang out with them, and not act like we're immortal people that are better than everyone else and stay hidden. And I think that's a special thing about Limp Bizkit. I think we're just all about, there's not a night that goes by I don't sign every autograph of everyone waiting on me after a show. Like, even if it's 5,000 people.
As a young teenager, my hobby became, and my passion became, finding somewhat obscure records. Like, as an early teen, I was not a fan of the Rolling Stones. I was not a fan of Led Zeppelin. I was not a fan of a lot of bands that I love now, because they were on the radio all the time. I heard it all. It wasn't special to me. Anyone could have it, and anyone could hear it. So I was more interested in obscure things that if I could sit and listen to and then play for my friends, and they would have never heard it before. And I could sit in my room and listen to it, and it would always be new. I didn't know the words already because I heard it on the radio 1,000 times. So I think that sort of holds true with young Soundgarden fans, because I see them kind of singing along to lyrics from albums that came out 23, 25 years ago. And that's because they've discovered it and went and bought the record and listened to it. And it's that sort of, I think it's that journey of discovery also that kind of makes it theirs. And a young person's relationship to music is completely different. It's a badge. It's the outfit you wear. It's the group that you have decided to either reject or to join, or reject everything. It's how you separate yourself from everyone else. And what makes me excited is to see young people that know a lot of these old songs and realize that they're doing what I did as a teenager with our music, and that's the whole point.